Julie Gunlock of the Independent Women's Forum with us on the program right now. Julie, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am excellent. I always love it when you send me an email. Here's what I've written. This might be my favorite headline ever. Salad, the silent killer. You have captured the culture of alarmism in 4 words, Julie.
Yes, and at this time it was not the feminists who were complaining about salads. In this case, I wrote about it. A scientist was saying that salad could be causing all sorts of health problems, which I will get into. But in addition, earlier in the week, feminists were complaining. I think we talked about it last week about how feminists were complaining about salad because it's a tool of the patriarchy.
Yes.
And then 1 week later, we have an article that says that salad is causing all sorts of health problems, and I can explain why that's baloney. But of course, it made all sorts of headlines. And so, the first thing I said in the article, this was at Acculturated, was, that's it. There is nothing left to eat. There really isn't. I mean, every single thing has been demonized.
Yeah, Vegemite, I think.
No, that's
still
bad. Come on, too much salt.
That's true. Yeah, I guess we got nothing. In which case, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to eat what I want.
Right. I mean, we've come full circle now, right? We should bring the trans fats back, okay?
That's right.
Bring the ketchup back as a vegetable in the school lunch because it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know if people know, but, everyone dies. Like, we all die, right? I mean, it just happens. And so there are risks associated with everything. Now, this article in the Daily Mail, which the Daily Mail generates a ton of alarmist headlines every day because it gets a lot of clicks. There is a scientist, and this is the thing. I mean, this isn't just this article, and an alarmist headline. I mean, and a scientist was quoted in the article, was willing to be quoted, has produced a study that suggests this. And what she says is that copper in salads, there's a lot of naturally occurring copper in salad greens, and that if you eat too many of them, which again, you'd have to eat, like a semi-truck full of greens to get a dose that's harmful. But she says that it can cause jitteriness and people being uneasy and all sorts of bad outcomes. But then I just did a simple Google search, and a ton of food products have copper, meats and other vegetables and coffee and tea and certain spices. Then I made the suggestion that maybe people are feeling down in the dumps and jittery because of the times we live in and because of headlines like this one that suggests we can eat nothing. We can eat nothing without grave dangers present.
Well, so buried down in this story in the Daily Mail, there is, I think, genuinely good advice from this doctor, who, it should be noted, also has a new book out now, it looks like, called Diet Slave No More.
Yeah, of course she does. Of course she does, right?
But look, she also says this: don't go crazy on avocados or coconuts. Eat a well-balanced diet of fruits and vegetables. Don't focus on one thing. She also talked about, eating meat and chicken and how that's okay for you too.
Don't be on her side.
I'm not. No. I'm not on her side. I'm just saying that buried in this story is the common sense advice of, don't eat nothing but salad, right? I mean,
right.
I can tell you do need a balanced diet. You need all kinds of things. When I was a college student, true story, Julie, kiwis were on sale at Walmart, and I had a kiwi-based diet. In fact, I had a diet that consisted exclusively of kiwis for about a week. You know what happened? I developed a kiwi allergy. Yes, I became allergic to kiwis because that was all that I was eating for a week.
That's weird. I remember when kiwis were this big deal. Like, they had just come on the market, and they were this very exotic fruit. So, yeah, you're right. You can hurt yourself if you eat too much. I always say, when people freak out about this tiny amount of preservative in their foods, which is barely detectable, if you eat it. If you eat the food that has the preservative, you can barely detect that preservative is even present in your body once you eat it. I always say, again, you have to remember the dose makes the poison. So if you ate a ton of this stuff, it would harm you. But eating a ton of cantaloupe will harm you. Drinking too much water can kill you.
Yes.
And so people need to keep this stuff in perspective. And I agree that it's nice that they buried that quote in the article, but the headline was terrifying. And you had to read, you were already, 3 paragraphs in, you're dying because you chose a salad at lunch. It is good advice. Look, people need a varied diet. They need to not eat with just one thing. Jeremy Piven, who's a famous actor, he apparently almost died of mercury poisoning because for a while all he would eat was sushi. And there is elevated levels of mercury in fish, and so he really caused himself some health problems there for a while. So yeah, eat a varied diet. Don't be crazy about your eating style. Avoid fad diets. Avoid things that say eat one thing. But again, it's just one of these articles that causes people a lot of strain. There's a new one out about toast and brown potatoes and brown food.
I sent that one to you yesterday. I'm sure I was one of many. Anytime I see something like that, I just immediately forward it to you. Debunk it. Just debunk it.
Yes.
By the way, if you do a Google search for Julie's story, Salad the Silent Killer, if you just do a search for Salad Copper, directly underneath your story, Julie, from the Trib Dem senior menus this is for last week. Last Monday, the senior menu consisted of something called copper penny salad. Now, don't eat copper pennies in your salad. Because that seems like it's going overboard. But
yeah, that's a little crazy. That's a little nuts. Yeah. So last week it was salads are killing you. This week it's toast and brown food. And as your wife knows, if you want to make a stew or you want to braise something, browning it, getting a good crust on it is critical. Brown food means good food, right? And so, essentially, I really don't know what these public health officials and what these scientists and what these so-called, food experts and nutritionists want us to eat. I guess they want us to eat some sort of congee or gruel or oatmeal or soft foods all day, pale foods, things that don't taste very good. It's just frustrating. I think it's frustrating for people who love food and for people who just want to eat without agonizing about it every minute.
I think it comes back to we're supposed to eat bugs, Julie. I think it's
all going in that direction.
It all comes back to you just need to eat more bugs. Yes. The toast, by the way, the toast story. Don't eat the toast. This comes from the United Kingdom's Food Standards Agency. They actually launched a campaign, a public health awareness campaign, Julie, called Go for Gold, that is designed to teach people what their toast should look like before they put the toast in their mouth.
Can you imagine that that the government funds were used for this PR campaign,
yes,
right?
Of course.
You wonder why in this country, there's been a lot of thought about why Trump won, right? A lot of agonizing and navel-gazing about this subject. And then you remember that under President Obama, the federal government and many state and local governments, too, got involved in every aspect, the minutia of our lives. The food we chose at the grocery store and how we were raising our children and, certain consumer products that we chose. It really is amazing now what the government gets involved in. And, of course, over in Europe and in England, it's no different. The idea that the government thinks it's their place to tell us the proper toasting methods of bread is bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it gets even better. Margie McCullough, who's the Strategic Director of Nutritional Epidemiology at the American Cancer Society, who is not, by the way, involved in this campaign in the United Kingdom, says, so far, eating foods containing acrylamide, which is what happens when you toast. This is the supposed dangerous thing in toast. So far, eating foods containing acrylamide has not been shown to increase cancer risk in humans.
Yeah.
That's from the American Cancer Society.
Right.
So we got a whole public awareness campaign. Don't eat this stuff that hasn't been shown to have a detrimental impact
And
to your health anyway.
And what has people need to understand this? I've said it a million times that there is a difference between causation and a correlative connection and causation. Look, they might have done a study and there was some sort of relationship or they saw a trend, but they have not established a cause. So they don't know this for sure. And this is what happened with cholesterol. The federal government in the United States has backed off of decades of advice to Americans about limiting cholesterol. Now, cholesterol, according to the United States government, cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern. I mean, that is for anybody who avoided egg yolks in the 90s. Okay, that's astonishing that reversal. Oh, sorry, we had it wrong. Okay, there's no real connection between saturated fat and heart disease. This is something that was jammed down our throat for years and years and years and years, and now the government's sort of backing off that stuff. So, people need to be wary of this. And the advice I always give people is talk to your doctors. They know the latest medical information, and they'll probably give you better advice than listening to these news stories and these studies that are generally pretty questionable.
Talking again with Julie Gunlock of the Independent Women's Forum about the latest from the culture of alarmism. So last week was salad. This week it's toast. What's on tap for next week, you think, Julie?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's been a while since we've had a good apple scare, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's time for an apple scare. I suspect things, eggs have had sort of a renaissance, as has cheese and butter, but it's time to scare people on those items since they're so popular now. It seems that when, it's a cyclical thing. When something becomes popular again, then you slam it back down. I'm sure we'll see. Nothing is immune now. Nothing's good for you. Everything's bad for you. It makes it incredibly difficult to create a healthy lifestyle and a healthy eating plan for you and your family.
We are coming up on Valentine's Day, so maybe it's going to be chocolate.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
maybe we're just going to get a series of stories about don't take your significant other out to dinner unless you want her to get cancer. Maybe that'll be the headlines next week.
That's like going out to eat in California, where they have to put a sign because everything causes cancer in California. So everything has to have a sign that says this could cause cancer. Look, it's a lot of silliness. I think that your listeners and your viewers are smarter than that and understand kind of the silliness and the folly of worrying about these things. But it really is important, I think, for people to understand that there are people on the internet and on television who push this narrative. We're talking about the food babe, we're talking about Gwyneth Paltrow. There's a very popular guy on the internet on Facebook called David Avocado Wolf. I can't tell you how many times I see people post stuff from him. He is a terrible source. So look, be careful about your sources. Make sure you're going to good sources, reputable scientific sources, medical journals, that kind of stuff. Don't get food information, from Facebook. Don't get it from a lot of these news sources that, post a lot of clickbait.
I'm going to start a YouTube channel and just call myself Dr. Meat. And
that sounds great. I
just
totally
promote a
that.
meat-based diet. All right, Julie, listen, thank you very much for joining us on the program. It's always good talking with you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. We'll do it again very soon.